I was home alone when my neighbor texted me. He asked if I was okay, because someone had just turned my living room light on. The problem was, I was sitting in the dark. Later that night, my friend asked why he could hear me walking around my house. I hadn't moved. And days later, I opened my closet, and it was still warm. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd say something like this. But what happened to me in Flagstaff, Arizona is the reason I still keep every light on in my house at night. Even when I'm alone, even when the power bill makes me wince. I moved there 3 years ago after my divorce, chasing quiet more than happiness. Flagstaff felt safe in a way that didn't ask questions. Pine trees, clean air, neighbors who nodded but didn't pry. I rented a small single-story house near the edge of town, not far from the Coconino National Forest. It wasn't isolated, exactly, but it felt like the kind of place where nothing unexpected ever happened. That was what I needed back then. I worked remotely as a data analyst. Long hours, strange schedules, and most nights I barely noticed the sun setting. Being alone didn't scare me. If anything, it was a relief. That night started like every other. I finished work around 9:30 p.m., microwaved leftover pasta, and sat on the couch scrolling through my phone while some forgettable true crime documentary played in the background. The house was quiet in that familiar way you stop noticing after a while, the refrigerator humming, the faint tick of cooling metal from the heater. Outside, the street was dark. Most of my neighbors went to bed early. I remember checking the time on my phone at 10:47 p.m. because I was debating whether to shower or just go to sleep. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unsaved number. For a second, I assumed it was spam. Then I read it. "Hey, are you okay?" That alone wouldn't have bothered me. But before I could reply, another message came in. "I don't want to freak you out, but someone just turned your living room light on." I stared at the screen, feeling that slow, sinking sensation in my stomach, like missing a step in the dark. My living room light was off. I was sitting in the glow of my laptop screen and the TV. I hadn't touched the switch all evening. I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came almost immediately. "Sorry, this is Mark. I live across the street." The gray house with the truck out front. I knew who he was. Middle-aged guy, quiet, waved sometimes when we passed each other. I'd never given him my number. I typed, "My light isn't on." There was a pause this time, long enough for my heart rate to pick up. Then, it just went off. I remember actually laughing. A short, sharp sound that surprised me. My first thought was that this was some kind of misunderstanding. Reflections? Maybe. Or he'd mixed up houses. Still, I stood up and looked around the living room, half expecting to see the light on without realizing it. Everything was exactly the same. I texted back, "Are you sure you've got the right house?" Another pause. Then, "Yeah, I'm looking right at it." I walked to the front window and peeked through the blinds. The street was empty. Mark's house sat across the road, porch light on, just like always. I couldn't see him, but that didn't mean he wasn't there. I texted, "I'm home alone. I haven't turned any lights on." That was when he sent the message that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Then who just walked past your window?" I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I stood there, staring at my phone, listening to the quiet of my house, like it might suddenly betray me. My first instinct was denial. Maybe he was messing with me. Maybe he'd had a few drinks. I typed, "This isn't funny." A few seconds later, "I'm not joking. I saw a shadow move across your blinds. I thought it was you." I felt suddenly aware of how exposed my house was. Thin walls, big windows. I locked the front door, then the back, even though I was pretty sure they were already locked. I checked the hallway, the bathroom, the bedroom. Everything was normal, too normal. I texted, "Can you describe what you saw?" The reply took longer this time. Hard to say. Just a person. Average height. They were moving slow, like they were taking their time. That detail stuck with me. Taking their time. Not rushing. Not sneaking. I sat back down on the couch, my heart pounding now. I tried to rationalize it. Shadows play tricks. Light from passing cars. But there hadn't been any cars. I knew that street. You could hear vehicles from a mile away at night. I texted, "You sure it wasn't just a reflection?" He responded, "I'm sure." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Your kitchen light just flickered." I looked toward the kitchen. It was dark. I hadn't even realized how still I was sitting until my leg cramped. I stood up slowly, every sense sharpened in a way I wasn't used to. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no doors, just the steady hum of the fridge. I texted, "I'm calling the police." He replied, "I already did. They're on their way." That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Something about the situation felt off, like I was reacting to events that had already happened, not ones I could still stop. While we waited, Mark kept texting updates. "I don't see anyone now. Your lights are all off. Wait." Then, after a few seconds, "Your bedroom light just turned on." My bedroom light. At the back of the house. I stared down the hallway. It was dark. I hadn't seen any light. I texted, "It's off." The response came slower than before. It was on for a second, I swear. I thought about my ex-wife then, about how she used to accuse me of never trusting my instincts, of always needing proof. Standing there, in my silent house, I realized how much I wanted this to be nothing, how badly I needed it to be a misunderstanding. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 officers knocked on my door, their flashlights already on. I let them in, explaining everything while they checked the rooms. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No open windows. No unlocked doors. One of them stepped outside to talk to Mark. When he came back, his expression was neutral in that practiced way. "Your neighbor says he might have been mistaken," he said. "Dark out here. Shadows." I asked if they'd checked his place. They said there was no reason to. Nothing had actually happened. After they left, I stood in my living room for a long time, listening to the quiet settle back into place. I texted Mark to thank him. He replied, "No problem. Sorry if I freaked you out." I didn't sleep much that night. Every sound felt louder. Every creak made my heart jump. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Sunlight through the windows, birds in the trees. I told myself it was over, that I'd let my imagination run away with me. Over the next few weeks, though, small things started to bother me. Lights I didn't remember turning off were off. A cabinet door in the kitchen would be open when I was sure I'd closed it. Once, I came home from the grocery store and found the bathroom fan running. Each time, I explained it away. I was stressed, distracted, until one night, around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Same number. "Hey," Mark texted. "Are you home?" My stomach dropped. I typed, "Yeah. Why?" The reply came after a pause. "Your porch light just turned on." I looked at the front door. It was dark. I didn't reply right away. A few seconds later, "And now it's off." I typed, "Did you see anyone?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "No. But I heard your door." I didn't call the police this time. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to be the guy who cried wolf. Maybe I didn't want it to be real. I checked the door. Locked. No signs of tampering. I sat down and stared at the wall, feeling that same creeping sense of being out of sync with my own life. After that, Mark and I started texting more often. Always at night. Always about my house. Your lights on. Your windows open. Sometimes I'd see what he described. Sometimes I wouldn't. I never once saw anyone myself. Weeks turned into months. I started keeping a log, writing down every message, every time something felt off. The pattern was impossible to ignore. It always started with him texting me first. I finally asked him how he always noticed. His response unsettled me more than anything else. "I work nights." He wrote, "I'm up anyway, and your house is easy to see from mine." I asked him why he never mentioned seeing anyone enter or leave. There was a long pause. Then, "I just assumed it was you." The realization hit me slowly, like a bruise blooming under the skin. He never saw anyone arrive. Never saw anyone leave. Just lights. Movement. Signs of presence. One night, after another message about my hallway light, I did something I should have done months earlier. I installed a security camera in my living room. Cheap, wide angle, nothing fancy. I told no one, not even Mark. That night, around 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Your living room light is on again." I didn't move. I opened the camera app. The feed showed my living room, dark and empty. No light, no movement. Then, slowly, the light turned on. The switch flipped down on its own. The camera didn't capture a hand, didn't capture a shadow. Just the switch moving. I felt a cold spread through my chest. A few seconds later, the light turned off. My phone buzzed again. "Did you see that?" Mark texted. I typed, "I'm watching the camera." There was no response. I checked the app again. The living room was empty, but in the reflection of the dark TV screen, I could see something I hadn't noticed before. A shape standing just out of frame, close to the camera. Too close. My phone buzzed one last time. "It's standing right behind you." I turned around. There was nothing there, but the house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied, like it always had been. I moved out of that house a week later, broke the lease, didn't care. I blocked Mark's number and never spoke to him again. Sometimes, late at night, my phone will light up with a notification from an unknown number. I never open them. I don't need to. I already know what they say. I live in Duluth, Minnesota, the kind of place where winter teaches you how to be alone. I moved there 5 years ago after my father died. Not because I loved the cold or the lake or the isolation, but because his house was there, and selling it felt like erasing the last solid proof that he'd existed. The house sat on a quiet residential street just a few blocks uphill from Lake Superior. Old, but sturdy, built in the 1950s, with narrow hallways and hardwood floors that creaked even when you knew exactly where you were stepping. I worked nights as a remote IT support technician, which meant my sleep schedule was already fractured. My sense of time blurred. I was awake when most people slept, and asleep when the town felt alive. Being alone in that house never bothered me, not at first. My father used to say, old houses talk to you if you listen long enough. Back then, I thought he meant creaks, pipes, settling wood. I didn't understand what he really meant until the night I heard myself walking around. It happened on a Tuesday in early March. One of those nights when the snow muffles everything so completely that even your own thoughts feel too loud. I remember the exact time because I checked my phone out of habit. 1:26 a.m. I was lying in bed, half scrolling through messages, half listening to the wind brush against the siding. I'd been on a call earlier with my friend Lucas, who lives in Wisconsin, and we joked about how quiet my place always sounded, like I was living inside a dead radio signal. After we hung up, I turned off the lamp and lay there, staring into the dark. That was when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not loud, not rushed, just the slow, familiar sound of bare feet on hardwood, moving from the living room toward the kitchen. My first thought wasn't fear, it was confusion. My second thought was that I must have already fallen asleep and was dreaming. The footsteps stopped near the kitchen doorway. I held my breath, listening. Then I heard them again, turning, heading back toward the living room. I sat up in bed, heart starting to thud harder than it should have. I live alone, no pets, no roommates, no neighbors close enough to mistake for inside noise. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded thin and strange in the dark. The footsteps stopped immediately. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise had. I waited. Nothing. I told myself it was the house settling, even though I knew better. The sound had rhythm, weight, intent. I got out of bed and flicked on the hallway light. The corridor was empty. Doors closed. Everything exactly where it should be. I checked the locks, the windows, all secure. When I went back to bed, I told myself I was overtired, that my brain was filling in gaps. That explanation worked until my phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "Hey man, quick question. Why are you walking around your house right now?" I stared at the screen, feeling the blood drain from my face. I typed back, "What do you mean?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, I could hear footsteps on the call. "Thought you got up." My chest tightened. "I hung up before that," I replied. A pause. Then, "No, you were still on the line. I heard you pacing. Slow. Like you were thinking." I sat perfectly still, listening to the silence of my room. "I'm in bed." I typed. "I haven't moved." Another pause. Longer this time. "That's not funny," Lucas wrote. I didn't sleep after that. The next day passed in a fog. I replayed the memory over and over, trying to poke holes in it. Maybe the call hadn't ended properly. Maybe he'd heard something else, static, interference. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. That night, I paid closer attention to the house than I ever had before. The way sound carried, the way the floors complained under weight. Around 12:40 a.m., I heard it again. Footsteps. This time closer, coming from the hallway outside my bedroom. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. They stopped directly outside my door. Then, impossibly, they resumed from inside the living room again, as if whatever was walking had somehow reset itself. I grabbed my phone and started recording audio, my hands shaking. The footsteps continued for almost a full minute, wandering aimlessly, never entering a room, never approaching me again. When they stopped, the silence felt wrong, like something had just finished doing what it came to do. I played the recording back. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. Footsteps, bare feet, on wood. Over the next week, it happened 3 more times. Always late, always slow, always when I was in bed. I never saw anything. I never heard doors open or close, just walking. I started sleeping with the light on. Then, with the bedroom door locked. Neither made a difference. One night, during another call with Lucas, he went quiet, mid-sentence. "Do you hear that?" he asked. My stomach dropped. "Hear what?" "You," he said. "You're walking again." I was sitting at my desk, frozen. "I'm not moving," I whispered. The footsteps started up right then, audible even to me now, moving down the hallway. Lucas swore under his breath. "That's not echo," he said. "That's you. Same pace, same rhythm." I hung up and ran to the hallway, flipping on every light. Nothing. The house was empty, but the sound continued for another few seconds, even after I stood there, wide awake, staring. That was when I noticed something I hadn't before. The footsteps didn't sound like someone wandering. They sounded like someone practicing, matching something. After that realization, things escalated. I'd find faint footprints in the dust near the baseboards, always pointing away from my room. Once, I woke up to my bedroom door unlocked, even though I was sure I'd locked it. I set up a camera in the living room, cheap and grainy, and reviewed the footage every morning. Most nights, nothing happened. But on the 4th night, at exactly 1:26 a.m., the camera feed showed movement. Not a figure, just a subtle shift in the shadows, like the room itself was breathing. The audio track picked up footsteps, slow, careful, identical to mine. I watched the clip over and over, my reflection faint in the dark TV screen behind me, until I realized something else. The footsteps weren't random. They followed the same path I took every morning when I got up for coffee. Living room to kitchen, kitchen to hallway, hallway to bathroom. Over the next few days, I tested it. I changed my routine, took different paths, avoided certain rooms. Each night, the footsteps adapted, corrected, as if learning. I stopped calling Lucas. I didn't want anyone else hearing it. I didn't want confirmation anymore. One night, around 2 a.m., I heard the footsteps start closer than ever before. Inside my bedroom, I lay there, eyes open, heart hammering, listening to something walk around the foot of my bed. I could hear it shift its weight. I could hear it pause, like it was deciding something. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail notification. from my own number. My hands shook as I played it. The recording was short, 10 seconds. All it contained was the sound of footsteps, slow, familiar, ending right beside the microphone. I moved out 2 weeks later. I don't live in that house anymore. I don't live alone. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it again. Not around me, not in my home, but faintly, through the phone line, when someone pauses too long before speaking. And every time, it sounds exactly like me, still walking, still learning, still trying to figure out how to replace me. I moved to Bozeman, Montana, because I wanted space, quiet, and a version of myself that didn't feel constantly watched by other people's expectations. After my mother died, I couldn't stand being in the house, where every object felt like it belonged to someone who was gone. So I took a remote job doing technical writing and rented a small one-bedroom duplex on the north side of town, close enough to Main Street to hear distant traffic, but far enough that nights felt almost rural. The place was nothing special: beige carpet, thin walls, old forced air heating, but it was cheap, clean, and most importantly, empty. I told myself that emptiness was what I needed. The first few weeks were uneventful. I fell into a routine quickly. Work during the day, long walks in the evening, dinner alone, then TV or reading until I got tired. I slept with the bedroom door closed, not out of fear, but habit. My mother used to insist on it when I was a kid, saying closed doors made you feel safer. I didn't believe that anymore, but the habit stuck. The first strange thing happened on a Sunday afternoon. I'd been out running errands most of the day: groceries, gas, a stop at the post office, and when I came home, I noticed the bedroom closet door was open. That alone didn't bother me. I'd been in a hurry that morning and probably left it that way. What bothered me was the feeling that hit when I reached to close it. The inside of the closet felt warm. Not just warmer than the room, but noticeably so, like heat radiating outward. I actually pulled my hand back for a second, confused. It was late October. The heat hadn't kicked on all day. I stepped closer and leaned in, expecting to feel a draft or find some obvious explanation. There was nothing, just my clothes hanging neatly, shoes lined up on the floor, the faint smell of laundry detergent. I laughed it off, chalked it up to bad circulation or imagination, and closed the door. That should have been the end of it. But once you notice something like that, it's hard to stop noticing everything else. Over the next few days, I became more aware of the apartment's little inconsistencies. The way the air in the bedroom sometimes felt thicker than the rest of the place. The way the closet door never quite stayed shut unless I pushed it firmly. One night, while brushing my teeth, I caught myself listening for sounds I couldn't explain. The building creaked like any old place does, but there was something else layered beneath it, a sense of presence that didn't announce itself with noise. The second time the closet was warm, I couldn't ignore it. I'd been gone all day again, hiking outside town, and when I came back that evening, the bedroom felt different. Not disturbed, just off. I stood in the doorway longer than usual, scanning the room. Everything looked the same. Bed made. Desk chair pushed in. Closet door closed. I went to change out of my hiking clothes and opened it. Warm air spilled out, brushing against my legs. This time, it wasn't subtle. It felt like someone had been standing in there, breathing. My heart sped up, And I remember thinking, very clearly, that warmth is a sign of life. I checked the vents, the walls, the ceiling. Nothing. No heater, no pipes running through the closet. I stood there longer than I should have, staring into that narrow space, half expecting to see an imprint where someone had been. That night, I slept with the bedroom light on, not because I was scared of the dark, but because I didn't want to wake up to the feeling that something had been there while I slept. Over the next week, the pattern continued. It only happened when I'd been gone for several hours. The closet was always closed when I left, and sometimes open when I returned. Sometimes not, but when it was open, it was always warm. Once, I noticed the faintest hint of moisture on the inside of the door, like condensation, even though the room was dry. Another time, there was a smell, subtle, human, like warm breath trapped in fabric. I started checking it compulsively, opening the door slowly, bracing myself each time. I told myself it was anxiety, grief, manifesting in weird ways. My mother's death had left me raw, hyper-aware of absence and presence, of bodies and the lack of them. I didn't tell anyone. Saying it out loud would have made it real. The first escalation came when I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of fabric shifting. I lay there, eyes open, heart pounding, listening. The sound came from the closet. A soft, deliberate movement, like someone adjusting their weight. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a few seconds, it stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, like the room was waiting for something else to happen. In the morning, the closet door was closed. When I opened it, the warmth was still there, stronger than ever. I pressed my hand against the back wall. It felt almost hot. That was when I noticed something else. The clothes hanging inside weren't arranged the way I'd left them. Not obviously disturbed, but subtly shifted, like someone had brushed past them repeatedly. I bought a cheap thermometer and left it in the closet. The next time I came home after being out all day, it read 10 degrees warmer than the rest of the apartment. I checked the rest of the place. Normal, only the closet. I emailed the landlord. He told me there were no pipes, no electrical issues, nothing that could cause localized heat. He suggested maybe the unit was poorly insulated. His casual tone irritated me more than it should have. That night, I dreamed that someone was standing in the closet, facing the door, waiting. I couldn't see them, but I knew exactly where they were. When I woke up, my sheets were damp with sweat, and the closet door was slightly ajar. Warm air leaked out into the room. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom after that. I moved to the couch, telling myself it was temporary. The activity didn't stop. If anything, it intensified. Sometimes I'd hear the closet door open while I was in the living room. Sometimes I'd come home to find it wide open, the warmth spilling into the hallway like a warning. Once, after a particularly long day, I found the closet light on. I never used that light. It cast a yellow glow over the clothes, and in that light, the warmth felt almost visible, like a distortion in the air. I stood there, shaking, and realized something that made my stomach drop. The warmth was always at about human body temperature. Around 98 degrees, I started packing. Slowly at first, then with urgency. I told myself I'd stay one more week, just to get my affairs in order. The night before I planned to leave, I woke up to the sound of the closet door opening fully. I didn't look. I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening as something inside the bedroom shifted, stepped out, and stopped. The apartment felt smaller, heavier. I could smell it now, clearly. Warm skin, breath, a presence that had learned the shape of my space. I closed my eyes and waited for something to touch me. It never did. In the morning, the bedroom was empty. The closet was cold. For the first time since I'd moved in, it felt like just a closet. I left that day. I live somewhere else now. A bigger building, more noise, more people. I keep my closet doors open, always. And sometimes, when I come home after being gone for a long time, I swear I can still feel it, lingering in the air behind my clothes, like it hasn't given up, like it's just waiting for the next time I decide to close the door and give it a place to stand.